Biology, Chapter 18, Theory Video 20. There are many different kinds of international conservation organizations. For example, CITES, CITES. This was signed between many different countries. Actually, 145 countries came together to agree in principle to control the trade of endangered species and also the products from them. So, for example, fur, skins, and ivory uh, are part of the things that have been banned. So this international trade in endangered species of wild flora and fauna, CITES. So this is not something that promotes it, but also it actually tries to prevent it from happening. So the Convention on International Trade in Endangered Species of Wild Flora and Fauna. So at the beginning there were 145 countries, but now many other countries also have joined this and signed it. So then there are in the CITES agreement, there are three actually appendixes. If one species belongs to one of these three appendices, then they will have some sort of a control. If the appendix 1 is species that are most endangered and threatened with extinction, so the trading regulation is going to be all trade in species or their products is banned. For example, orangutans, the Pongo abeli and Pongo pygmaeus, Borneo, Indonesia. Then the plant examples are Kinabalu pitcher plant, then Nepenthes kinabolensis, that is in Malaysia. Then the second appendix is species that are not threatened with extinction but will be unless trade is closely controlled. So the trading regulations would be trade is only allowed if an export permit is granted by the countries concerned. Then Sir David, this is named after Sir David Attenborough. Sir David's long-beaked echidna, Saglosus attenboroughi, they are from Papua, Indonesia. Then the plant species are all species in the genus Nepenthes, Venus flytrap, Dione massipula. So they are, unless you have a permit, you will not be granted to trade. Then appendix 3 is species included at the request of a country that regulates trade in the species and needs the cooperation of other countries to prevent unsustainable or illegal exploitation. So they would be regulated, permits are required, but you can easily obtain these permits. It is easier to obtain from rather than when compared with appendix 2, they are easy to be taken. Then the examples are Mauritian pink pigeon, Columba mayeri. Then plant examples are spur tree from Nepal, Tetracentron sinsen. Those are the scientific terms. Now, so these appendixes will actually they will be reviewed by different experts, and they actually add different species of animals and plants into these groups. However, this is actually there are a lot of people who are criticizing this because it will if they belong to appendix 3, people will easily be able to exploit these animals. Then also when the prices increase when it belongs to appendix 2 or appendix 1, there will be more value given to them. Then people are likely to pay a bigger price to obtain them. As a result, there will be people, that popularity will actually allow people to earn more money by killing those animals. So that is what has happened to ivory trade. So for ivory there is a huge demand. So because there is a small supply, people kill off these animals uh, to obtain that high profit. Then uh, you can actually see a lot of details about the animals who are listed in these on the website of CITES. Then IUCN is another very important organization, International Union for Conservation of Nature. This is defined as the global authority on the status of the natural world and the measures needed to safeguard it. So what they do is they identify animals and they classify based on their conservation status, that is whether they are threatened species, and they have a list of IUCN red list of threatened species. So they monitor the populations of different species and they evaluate the risks of these species becoming extinct, and then they either remove or add these animals into different these different lists. So these lists are available to governments, planners, conservationists and environmental campaigns around the world, and they are able to campaign against the different types of things that needs to be done to take these animals out of the risk category. So the classification of species of the IUCN methodology is given here. So you start with all species, then there are assessed and not assessed. So obviously not assessed means we don't have any details. Assessed, there are two categories: adequate data, inadequate data. So inadequate data, we have to do more research on them. Then adequate data, if you have adequate data about a certain species, they would be categorized into one of the 5 groups. Extinct, they are all gone. Then extinct in the wild, but they are conserved in captivity. Then the animals who are threatened, near threatened, or the least concern. Then we start off with threatened species. Then the threatened species will be divided into 3 subcategories: critically endangered, endangered and vulnerable. So all those 3 belong to threatened. So the elephants, as you know, they are threatened species, and also they are categorized under endangered species, but very likely to fall under critically endangered in the very near future. Then pandas are critically endangered species. So that's the end of the chapter. I hope you understood. If you have any questions, you can ask, but before that, write down a note on this. International conservation organizations. Number 1, CITES, CITES, CITES. Convention on International Trade in Endangered Species of Wild Flora and Fauna. This organization categorizes plants and animals into 3 different indices that regulates trading. Please write down this table 18.12. After writing down, write down IUCN. The International Union for Conservation of Nature is the global authority on the status of the natural world and the measures needed to safeguard it. They classify species depending on the data available to ascertain how threatened the particular species is. Their aim is to remove animals from the red list of threatened species to lower risk categories. Please draw this figure 18.43. If you have any questions, please ask. If you did not, if you do not have any further questions, please do the end of chapter questions to understand it all.